Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ramp Truck Project. This should be the last video before we attempt to drive this truck for its first journey and its very long journey up to North Carolina. And we get to experience yet another season in the 3 weeks we've been working on this project. Winter has found us. The goal remains the same today though, the brakes. So last time we finally got the right rear hub, brakes, everything apart over here. We got the axle out. Today we need to reassemble that with a new wheel seal, new shoes, and new hardware. It shouldn't be too terribly bad. This was actually pretty simple to get apart once you finally broke everything free. I think a big thing is going to be getting the drum cleaned up. I tried to source a new drum for us so that we didn't have to deal with this. Unfortunately, it wasn't available on any kind of decent timetable, so we won't be able to do that. So I have multiple things of brake clean, actually off-brand brake clean because I'm poor, and lots of rags, and also a tip from the comments of last time. Thank you everybody that's been commenting. I appreciate it. It makes me feel like I'm doing these videos for a reason when people actually comment and have thoughts and generally just seem to enjoy watching along with us here. But yeah, the idea was to use my torch to try and burn out some of the grease, try and draw some of the grease out of the metal because it's been in there so long probably and cooked into the metal through the shoes that a little heat might help draw some of it out. So I might give that a try and see if it does anything for us. But now let's get to work. First off, we need to go ahead and start cleaning the drum. One convenient factor with the ramp truck, you always have yourself a work shelf whenever you gotta work on it, right? Alright, so the first thing I'm gonna try to do here is separate the hub from the drum. If it doesn't go easily, I'm not gonna worry about it, but I see the three flatheads, basically bolts that hold it together. We'll see if it just comes apart. So now if we had needed to just service the brakes, we could have done this. We could have done this, and I didn't really make that obvious from the beginning. All of this, not totally necessary to do the brakes, but I knew that we needed to take the hub off because we needed to inspect the seals inside because I just had the intuition that something was wrong there, and obviously all the grease. But yeah, if we just wanted to do the drums, we could have done that. So if the other side doesn't look bad, we might do that. Now we have good access to this and we can try to clean it up. Is it clean yet? How about now? That looks clean. So here's one of the very few chances where rust is a good sign. That means we've gotten most of the grease out, most of it cleaned up, because we've exposed machined metal, which is instantly starting to rust. That is a very good thing. Alright, now we need to tackle the actual brakes. Means let's clear out all of our bearings. Get them out of here. Let's put that under there. This is all disgusting as well. It needs to be cleaned up. Mainly, we're going to replace the wheel cylinder since we're here, and we're going to do shoes since we're here. I, geniusly, moved my brake spring removal tool to North Carolina, so I'm going to do this with just pliers. But everything should be very well lubricated back here, and not a problem. So I'm going to take a picture of the way everything is, just so we know when everything goes back together. Here's one thing I messed up when I did the fronts that I had to end up redoing is the size of the pad material on the shoe. So the front shoe should be the smaller one and the back shoe should be the bigger one. Just make a note of how it was and make sure you put them back the same way because it's really a bummer when you take everything apart and then have to redo it. So now I'm going to try and disassemble here, take the springs off sensibly, not lose an eye, and see how it goes. So there is one key difference from the back to the front. Even though this is the same brakes, obviously the back has the e-brake mechanism in, which is clipped in right here, and this bar that, I hope my pictures were good because I don't really know what was going on with it. Oh, just like that. Okay, that's not too bad. There's always something that ends up just driving you nuts. Some little bit of hardware. Boy, what a clip. So now part of me is like, do I really want to take that wheel cylinder off? It's working, in theory, and we can see why the brake was having a failure. Why take the wheel cylinder off and potentially cause another problem? Well, there's that argument, but there's also the argument of, that was not particularly easy to get to. It will be easier the second time around, but when you're in there and you have the parts, you're going to feel real stupid if you don't do them. And then you have a failure later and have to get in there again. So let's go for it. Let's do it. And luckily, because this brake system is so dead simple, it's very easy to bleed. It's so easy to bleed, in fact, that when I started doing the fronts, I bled all four corners. I thought I was having an issue getting it to bleed. It turns out that it was so easy to bleed, it had gotten all the air out before I even realized it was possible to. That looks like the same part to me, just a little bit different casting. Unfortunately, they don't give you new ones of these. That just made an amazing sound coming out of there. They don't give you new ones of these, so we do have to reuse them. Oh, that one didn't do it. I probably talked right over the other one making the amazing sound. Alright, so I'm going to clean those up a bit. A tutorial on doing drums, this is not. This is only my third ever drum service. So, as in, I did the front two, and this is number 3. So I'm not an expert in the matter. There's a lot of bad parts of YouTube, but one of the good parts is the abundance of great tutorials out there, and there are some great tutorials on how to service drums, and they're pretty much all the same. I got a little chuckle out of my research and looking for videos in that the first one that came up was a Chris Fix video, which he is like he's a YouTube insider. He has pretty much the stranglehold on the tutorial stuff for cars. Interestingly, I found one of his old videos. It was kind of before he made it kind of deal. And interestingly, I related so much more to it. It was so much more helpful to me because he was using the tools he had at his disposal. He redid the video in modern good recording equipment and whatnot, and obviously better at presenting and whatnot, but he had all the fancy tools and everything. Like, he had every possible brake tool you could think of there. And sure, it makes it easier, but I like to know how this stuff happens in the real world. So his old video, thank you for not taking that down, because that was super helpful. Alright, I got you right down in here now, so let's start reassembly. We have matched the shoes together to make sure we put the right one on the right side. So this is our shoe for the back side. What we want to do is take a little bit of grease and put it on these pads right here, because this is actually where the shoe slides on the backing plate, and then a little bit right here where everything pivots. There's actually not a ton of movement in this stuff, so it's not like you might think, that you need a lot of grease on this stuff because it's moving around, but we're talking 1/4 of an inch of travel here, not too much. Try to get a grab on that spring. You see it pull it back, and then it needs to go there. Release, please. Thank you. Okay, that feels pretty good. Alright, so at this point I have both of the shoes in place, the cylinders in place. Everything's still a little out of alignment, but we're not going to panic because we don't have stuff in place yet. We do know this bar goes in here. How do we do that? Okay, so we needed to do that before everything was set. So I'm glad we did that. And now I think probably springs, but first that cable. Okay. Alright, so what we have here, this is the spring that is pulling the shoe in. Underneath of that is the cable that goes around this little plate here. This spring actually holds that plate in place, and then this cable goes down to where the brake adjuster is. The brake adjuster is this, which is already very well lubed, thanks to previous problems. And these are almost always a reverse thread, which will catch you out. It catches me out every time. As you can tell right now, we're nowhere near touching, because this side hasn't got any pull to the center. All right, so now the spring goes into here. It needs to come up to that middle post. I said that middle post. Oh, so close. Please don't swing the spring. So the pads are being pulled to the center. You can see the gap in the top closed right up. Everything's good there. Cables are all routed. So as long as we can get the adjuster on and the adjuster spring, we're good. Please release. Okay. In theory, brake's complete. So just a very quick rundown here. E-brake cable pulls to this. When you pull the e-brake, it pulls this arm, which pushes out the pads. Same shoes as the regular brakes. This is unique to the back. I believe it just helps to spread the force of this arm to both shoes. Then you have two cables here that are pulling the shoes to the top pivot point. An adjuster down here that is keeping these shoes a distance apart, that is adjusted with this. And then this spring at the bottom helps to keep everything tight to the adjuster. And then these two springy, bolty thingies that help the shoes float. And that is your very technical explanation of drum brakes. Alright, now with these three screw holes in the proper positions, these are set in a way that it only goes one way. You should be able to just pull the drum back through and then put the hub down on a piece of wood or something and reattach it. And that should be just about right. I'll probably loosen them up just a touch, but now we gotta get the bearings and everything in there, and we need to get the new rear inner seal on there. If we don't do that, then we'll have another drum full of grease. Okay, so at this point we put our inner bearing back in place. Make sure you do that before you go ahead and put that seal on there, or you will really be a sad, sad person. Now these bearings don't get packed with grease in the same way that a front wheel bearing does, because this shares grease with the rear end. Now you could, if these were brand new, I would definitely put some grease in them, but these are still full of differential grease, so we are good. And now for our new seal, which gets pressed into place with a very special press, hydraulic press that pushes them down. You know I'm not going to do that. Alright, nice and flush with the face. Should be good to go. So basically from here to the edge of the hub, and you can see, you know, where this is relative to the face, grease is able to flow through here. So this whole area here is considered a wet area. It is part of the differential. Now with a bearing in place, we're going to be able to see what our fitment's like. So the way this adjuster works is it's essentially just a simple ratchet. as it passes that arm. You can hear it click, click, click. So it can always tighten, but it can never loosen. So as the shoes wear, if it needs to tighten, it can tighten. But if it needs to loosen, it can't loosen. And it should never need to loosen. Now the back is a little bit different than the front, where you can adjust this through a hole in the back plate. This one, not adjustable, so you'd have to pull the whole drum off in order to do this. So we really want to make sure this is right. And it should auto adjust. It should tighten it up if it needs to. Okay, I'm happy with that. All right, happy with that. Inner nut. That's about perfect, I do believe. This basically acts as a way to lock these two together, pretty much flush to the edge. Pretty happy with that. And then the way this works is the other plate bolts on right here. So there's a little bit of a dome in the middle, a little bit of a dome in the axle, so this nut can actually sit out just a touch, but it can't actually physically back out unless the bolts came out of this. So pretty secure there. Let's put the e-brake on, see if it actually holds. Wow. Yeah, I could still basically freely spin this around before. It's time to slide an axle in. And index it into the differential right. Alright, so for hardware now, we got grade 8 bolts and washers, and then our cones on there again. And let's see if we thread appropriately. Feels like it. And that should be good to go. No more studs. Hopefully we don't ever have to do that again, other than the other side. New day, new weather, new mess up. I actually edited the footage that you've already seen in this video yesterday and last night, and I realized as I was going through the footage, this clip never went back in. This is the clip that holds that e-brake arm onto the shoe. So now it's got to come back apart. Hi, NASCAR. I talked about it a little bit, but this is how you access the brake stuff without doing the hub. Pretty simple. Why did I get the world's shortest screwdriver? Alright, with those three out and the e-brake off, this will just slide right off. I said it would slide right off. There it goes. Okay. Oh, good catch. Yeah, it had almost fallen out. Right? Right. Crisis averted. You know how much sleep I lost over that little clip last night? Unbelievable. Oh boy, have I got a story for you today. I want to get the other side wheels off, and I'm going to do the shoes on this side, and I really just want the wheels off just in case we get, stuck on the side of the road. We need to get the wheels off, and I don't want the lug nuts to be super tight. It's been about 3 hours now of trying to get these off. I've purchased the largest breaker bar I could buy at the store, a piece of galvanized pipe, and have used everything at my disposal in order to try and get these off. Everything, including breaking one of my really nice 1/2-inch extensions. Did you know that some Dana 60s have left-hand threads on only the driver's side? I didn't know that. Now I know that. Now you know that. Don't be like me. Don't spend 3 hours trying to get your lug nuts loose while you're actually tightening them. The good news is I'm at least not the first one to have made the mistake. However, the mistake was very easy to make because of all the red paint. But if you look right there, you can just see they are actually stamped with L's on them. Unbelievable. So the driver's side over here has some mysteries to it. This one, not full of grease, but that is brake fluid. So that wheel cylinder has been leaking pretty good. But more importantly, I feel, broken cable. So the adjuster cable has been broken on this side, which may be contributing to the inequality of the brakes in the back. So at this point, I'm gonna do the wheel cylinder, the shoes, and try to find a new cable hardware kit for this side and see where we're at. And of course, the part isn't available, so I think I'm gonna have to try and combine this with this. Basically what I need is this hook end on this cable. We'll see. Well, it ain't the prettiest thing, but it might get us by. Luckily, this cable is available, but we just gotta wait for one to be ordered, which I don't feel like doing right now. So the drive went very well. Very well. Status update. So last night I drove the truck a pretty good bit, like 60 miles or so, at night over narrow roads. So that was a pretty good test, and it did pretty well. Third gear is still a mess. I'm not gonna try and tell you that it's not, but I can deal with it for the time being. Whether or not we still have a third gear by the time we get to North Carolina, different subject altogether. But it did do well. We do have a little bit of work to do this morning to just finishing things up. Gonna make some new mounting points to get the car on here. I'm gonna get the car on here. I was given an old tack. I'm gonna try and put that in, see if I can get that to work. And then from there, I'm gonna give it another little test with the car on there, and we might be ready to go. Also, I realized when I was editing the rest of it, I never truly said why I used new hardware, and that is because that stud extractor actually clamps down onto the threads of the stud in order to get them out. So, yeah, these studs, although technically you could probably rethread it, it's way smarter to use new hardware. And yeah, the brakes seem really good. The pads, or sorry, the shoes, I keep saying pads. The shoes all bedded in very nicely. The adjusters adjusted nicely, so cool. All right, listen. Things are weird, but trust me, this makes sense. Trust me. The reality is I'm just trying to put a better hook in the front of the 240 so we can pull it up onto the truck easier. Huzzah! Bolted in place, good to go. Alright, it is winching time with our new hook and snatch block. That's right, I said snatch block. Alright, well, there's a 240 behind us. Let's try our first trip. Handled its first journey quite well. No main issues. I think it's go time for the trip.